Our next category is completed buildings culture. Emery Aralat's got a slight conflict of interest because he was involved in this category himself yesterday, so I've asked him and he's very kindly agreed not to comment on the next presentation, although there'll be discussion in the jury room at the end of the day. Well, congratulations to the winner of the category. It's Renzo Piano Building Workshop for the Istanbul Modern Museum of Art. Please welcome them. Good morning.
Good morning everybody. My name is Ronan Dunphy and I'm from Renzo Piano Building Workshop. I'm here with Umit Mesci from the Istanbul Modern. He's a curator with the museum. Istanbul Modern, Turkey's first contemporary and modern art museum. Istanbul Modern, the first modern and contemporary art museum in Turkey, came to us about 10 years ago and asked us to design a new museum for their building. As you can see here in this image, we're located in the very center, the heart of Istanbul, on the Bosphorus Strait. This image shows the Galata Tower, which was the Genovese center of the colony in the era of Constantinople. This image for us was important because I think it shows the movement on the Bosphorus, on the sea, and how active the water is. The shoreline and how the city interacts with the water is very interesting, and it's always alive. We're located on the European side of the Bosphorus Strait. Across the waters from us is the Asian side. This area of the city was historically used as a port. There were many ships moving through the area and storing their goods along the coastline here. The existing museum moved into one of the industrial warehouses that were built on the site in the 1950s and 60s. So there was a good presence on the site. The museum had established itself and had a nice collection. Unfortunately, this old building turned its back on the city. You can see here how the building is a barricade between the city and the Bosphorus. There are many historical buildings close by that were blocked. The view was disconnected. Inside the museum, you can feel the industrial feeling of the old building. 1.5 kilometers of this coastline was being redeveloped, and those 4 warehouses were demolished, and they dug down approximately 18 meters to bury the port facilities underground. So all the cruise ships that arrived, the people were moving into the city through an underground system. This allowed the waterfront to be opened up again to the people. We take on not very many projects every year. At any one time, we've got 4 or 5 projects in the studio. So it allows us to have also intensive workshops with the clients in Genoa and in Istanbul. Some of the early workshops, the idea began to come out of this, Renzo Piano describes it as a sea creature leaping from the waters and landing on, being suspended on the waterfront. So we began to play with this volume, taking the boundaries that we were given and filling almost the entire site with a rectilinear, simple, clean volume. Importantly, maintaining the ground floor to be completely free and transparent. By lifting the building, we were giving public space back to the people. Articulating that volume, adding staircases, adding some cuts, but always leaving the ground floor free. In this model, you can see the historical buildings around and the Bosphorus closer to us, and the building as it's elevated on columns to allow the ground floor to be free. The car parking was built before we took possession of the site, and then we built our 5 floors, 2 below ground and 3 above, with the main museum spaces, the gallery spaces, on the top floor. The ground floor has a setback facade allowing even more public space to be given back to the city, and the central stairs located centrally in the plan, gives a clear indication of how people can navigate through the building. Again, we wanted to reinforce that connection between the historical buildings, the park, and the sea. In this image, you can see one of the cutbacks where that connection is recreated, and the beautiful sunsets on the Bosphorus are visible from the park. Some of the views frame the historical buildings, again, allowing that visibility from the Bosphorus to the park and to the historical buildings. And this is an image of the new promenade with all of the port facilities buried underground. So it's, again, a free and public space. The ground floor plan has two main entrances, one from the park on the north and one from the water on the south. And the important thing to mention, I think, on this level is all of the activities here are free. You don't need to buy a ticket to experience this level of the museum. Surrounding the lobby space, we have the shop, a library, which is free and publicly accessible. We have discovery educational spaces for children. We have an indoor and outdoor cafe space. And we also have a small exhibition. In this exhibition, we included, it was a collaboration between the museum and us, the Renzo Piano Building Workshop, in which we displayed some of the tools that we used for the design process, the models, the drawings, and the prints. One of the things that was on display there was the detailed studies on the structural stability system. As we all know, in Istanbul last year, there was a devastating earthquake. It just reminds us of the strength of the seismic activity in that area. So it was very important for us to create a stable, strong building by studying with our engineer partners to make these cross bracings an architectural element, not just structural. And by doing this, we managed to create a transparent and free ground floor plane without any opaque walls. Again, opening up that view between the Bosphorus and the park. Centrally located is the staircase, which allows for clear, visible access moving throughout the building. On the first floor, we have the restaurant and some smaller gallery spaces. And in the plan, you can see on the arrival, there's a clear view north and south, so the visitor can clearly orientate themselves within the building. Again, on the second floor, we have over 3,000 square meters of gallery space. And again, that's strong axis moving north and south is visible, so people can orientate themselves north and south. Here's one of those framed views towards the park, bringing the greenery into the building. The original museum building, which existed on that site before, had this industrial feel, and we wanted to, in some way, pay homage to that. So we chose exposed concrete columns and beams to be used throughout. We have all the mechanical systems exposed, like in an industrial building, and we have polished concrete floors throughout. The facade, the element that wraps the building, is made of 3mm aluminium cold-pressed panels. We added a curvature, which acts not only in an aesthetic way, but also a technical way, because it strengthens the aluminium panel. As the sun moves around the building, the shadows change. The reflections on the glass and on the panels reflect that of the season and the sky. We have the external staircases allowing for free plan, but also these elements act as the horizontal walkways outside give vibration to the facade, interest. And the loading dock door with its inverted panel allows for larger pieces to be loaded into the galleries. The shadows on the grating also create interesting patterns on the facades. As you rise up through the building, on the top floor we have a roof terrace. The entire roof of the building is covered with a shallow plane of water. So it's quite a surprising experience when you've navigated through the museum spaces and you arrive on the roof terrace and you're presented with this large area of water around you. The roof terrace also has a strong view towards the city, in this case towards the park, bringing the greenery back into the building and making a strong connection with its surroundings. The reflections bring the green into the building. The reflections also look onto the Galata area, reflecting this night sky, towards the historical peninsula, and towards the Asian side. And this is an image taken on the roof of the roof itself, where the building tends to merge into the Bosphorus, creating this metaphysical space. The clean form which presents itself from the Bosphorus has no mechanical spaces on the roof. We just have photovoltaic panels on the roof canopy itself, which provide 7% of the building's energy needs. All the MEP is located underground. We are using the heat transfer from the salt water in the Bosphorus to heat and cool the building. In fact, recently we've just been awarded LEED Gold Sustainability Certificate. Over 3,000 people were involved in creating this building, between designers and labourers and suppliers and people who worked on site. We've provided 10,500 square meters of publicly accessible space. And last month alone, over 100,000 visitors visited the museum. This has exceeded all our expectations. This is a place for people to gather, to experience art and culture and share this in a public way in Istanbul. Thank you.
You go first.
Very perfect, very precise, very beautiful looking building. Congratulations. I'm wondering about the project being situated in Istanbul. I look at this picture and I see that a very, very modern genre is kind of almost, of course, this project and others down the Bosphorus. But when I look at the skyline here, it talks of a lot of historic context, a lot of references from different eras, and the fact that it's situated in Turkey. So would you just like to talk a little bit about the thought process behind choosing almost a completely non-referential to history, but of course responding to the Bosphorus? So could you talk a little bit about that choice?
Sure. Istanbul is a city that's been changing for thousands of years, and each generation and each century has given new architecture to the city. And we should continue to grow that and add new elements. But it was very important for us that the building responded to the city and spoke to the city and reacted to the glistening waters of the Bosphorus. So we represented that in the facade and on the roof terrace, where we're playing with the city, as the reflections of the city are given back to the people in a double format through the reflections on the reflecting pool. So I think that creating a public space was the most important element, most important part of this project, reopening that ground floor and giving back accessibility between the park and the Bosphorus, and doing that through a new architecture.
So that ground floor is free for the public to go in, even if, like, they can just walk in and out. It's not a...
There are 2 entry doors. You don't need any ticket to go in there, and all the activities are free. So there's a shop, a library, a small exhibition space, discovery education spaces, a gallery space, a sculpture garden outside on the west end, and all of those activities are free. So we're encouraging people. The museum is encouraging people to come and spend time there and enjoy the art, enjoy culture, share it together.
So a second question, you talked about that elevated roof covering about 10% of the energy needs. So what is happening on the rest of the roof?
The rest of the roof is covered with a small shallow plane of water, a reflecting pool. So we fought very hard with our engineers to remove all of the mechanical equipment from the roof. We've got no chillers and coolers and large bulky equipment up there, because the view to the city and the view back to the Bosphorus is absolutely spectacular. There's a wonderful culture of enjoying the rooftops in Istanbul, and we wanted to maximize that experience in this museum. So by providing this shallow plane of water, we can give a very unexpected experience to the visitors. but it also helps the building. There's a cavity underneath that roof, roof water feature, which helps eliminate the thermal differentiation between the museum spaces below and the outside spaces on top. The sun is very strong there. It can get very hot, and with a concrete building in this location, we're trying to reduce the heat island effect that can happen on a concrete building in a city centre location.
I'm reminded of a Dominican monastery where the ground floor is public and accessible, and then you move to the next floor, which is public-private, because you're now in the museum. And then you get the private, which probably is somewhere where the offices are. And then you get to the roof. And here you've actually literally said, I can walk on water. So you're talking with God. Is that a fair description of a lot of the architecture of Piano Workshop?
I think the Renzo Piano Building Workshop, we like to play with light. We like to make things levitate. We like to surprise people. And lifting the buildings off the ground is one of the principal theories that we try and integrate into a lot of our buildings, because it gives freedom for people to come and enjoy and enter the buildings.
But that is the Dominican principle.
Perhaps.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I don't have too many comments, but I was working with Renzo 30 years ago, so I just see the legacy of his work now. Is kind of a perfection in simplicity. Is everything looks simple, but the perfection is something like a Calvino said, that using precise word is a beauty, is a form of beauty when things are precise. And I think the idea, this urban design on the ground floor, the connecting the city, avoiding buildings, is becoming like a dam. But the detail of the facade is these aluminium panels. You said.
Correct, yes.
I remember one of these work in 1970 for the Osaka Pavilion in kind of fiberglass. These little details follows and become more and more sophisticated. And then I think especially in this period of architecture is very extravagant and it's complicated. You can find the peace, and I think it's a very good equilibrium. Also in a complex city like Istanbul, which is, like you said, so many levels of buildings and history, and you find on the Bosphorus this kind of a peaceful place. So I think it's a great project. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.